Hello and welcome to the studio. If you're a car enthusiast, you know that modern sports cars are fast. A Honda Civic Type R laps the Nürburgring's Nordschleife faster than the fire-breathing GT cars of yesteryear. And big 4,000-pound sedans are doing the quarter mile in under 10 seconds. In fact, they've gotten so fast that it's tempting to look at any new car and say, well, that's a race car right out of the box. But that raises the question, what makes a car a race car? How is this Mitsubishi Evo with all of its rally racing heritage not a race car, while this unassuming little 100 horsepower Chevrolet Sonic is? Well, it might surprise you to learn that it isn't the power-adding engine mods, the track-tuned suspension, or racing slicks that make a car a race car. It actually has to do with two things that feel completely out of place in the high-risk, adrenaline-filled world of motor racing. And those two things are rules and safety. What? Rules? What do you mean, rules? Well, racing cars come in all shapes and sizes, but the one thing that's common across every race car ever built is that it's been designed to conform to the rules set by a racing sanctioning body. And yes, it's about as mind-numbingly boring as you might expect. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is the cover page of the General Club Rules and Regulations of the Sports Car Club of America, otherwise known as the SCCA GCR. Within its 702 pages, there are detailed regulations that dictate everything that you need to do to your car to make it eligible for club racing with the SCCA. Every racing organization has a rulebook like it. Here's the Motorsport Australia Technical Appendix for touring cars racing down under. Here's the IndyCar rulebook, the rulebook for the FIA World Rally Championship, and one of my personal favorites, the technical regulations for the FIA European Truck Racing Championship. Great series. Although each of these rulebooks are written for different types of cars and for vastly different racetracks, there's one thing that they all have in common. They all contain a set of minimum safety standards that your car must conform to in order for you to compete in races. That's right, it's the heavy steel roll cage, this hip-hugging racing seat, these FIA-certified racing harnesses, and the onboard fire extinguisher system that make this car a race car. It doesn't matter how much horsepower you have, how big your wing is, or how much money you spent on your fancy track-tuned coilovers. If your car doesn't have the safety equipment to comply with the rules, it is not a race car. Now, before you start shopping for racing seats and calling up roll cage builders, there is one other thing you should know. And that's as cool as it sounds, you do not want a race car as your daily driver. The truth is that race cars are a massive pain to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Even getting in and out of them is a chore. For example, sitting down into the driver's seat of our SCCA legal Honda Prelude race car involves climbing in through this little hole surrounded by metal tubing, dodging the bottom of the steering wheel, and slipping into the narrow space between the bolsters on this non-adjustable, non-reclinable racing seat. Everything in here just gets in the way. Especially these roll cage tubes, which hurt like none other when you inevitably bash your knees into them. Now you'd think this nice soft roll bar padding would make it better, right? But no, this SFI certified roll cage padding is only designed to protect you from breaking your limbs in the biggest of crashes. In reality, it's pretty solid. It has about the same density as balsa wood. If you slam your arm or leg against this stuff, you will end up with a bruise. Now, the fact that these NASCAR-style door bars stick out a little bit does make it a little easier to get in and out. But look what we had to do to the door to make it fit. Never mind an armrest, there isn't even a door handle. I used this pull cable to open the door from the inside. It looks awful. And you can forget about rolling down the window. Because we had to cut out the window regulators to make room for the cage, it only has two positions. In and out. The more important point though is how unsafe these modifications make the car when it isn't driven in the right conditions. And yes, I know that sounds completely insane. This stuff is safety equipment. How come modifications that we made to improve safety make your car less safe? Well, you see, modifications like the roll cage, racing seat, and harnesses are designed to work in conjunction with a full set of driver safety gear. You know, stuff like this FIA helmet, this 3-layer Nomex racing suit, these fireproof gloves, and this head and neck device. Without the protection of this helmet and the restraints on this head and neck device, you could easily hit your head against one of these roll cage tubes and end up with serious, life-changing head injuries. And no, this isn't just a theoretical discussion. Unfortunately, this has happened in real life. In 2009, pro race car driver and best motoring presenter Daisuke Ito hit a fallen tree while driving a street car equipped with a 6-point roll cage. Because it was a low-speed test drive, he wasn't wearing a helmet at the time. And when the car hit the tree, his unprotected head made hard contact with the roll cage. Despite it being a relatively slow 15-mile-per-hour accident, Daisuke ended up being rushed to the hospital unconscious with a fractured skull, lacerations all across the right side of his head, and a serious concussion. Thanks to the swift action of first responders and doctors, and of course a long and painful rehab process, Daisuke did eventually make a recovery, and was able to return to the pro racing circuit. But he also ended up suffering permanent brain damage that will affect him for the rest of his life. Here's something else to think about. These racing seats and harnesses offer phenomenal levels of support to the kind of hard cornering and aggressive driving that you'd experience on a racetrack. But they do make it very difficult to get in and out of the car. If I told you I will give you $10 to get out of the driver's seat of your street car as fast as possible, I bet you could do it in a little over a second. But in a race car, it will take much longer to unbuckle yourself, pull yourself out of the street, and maneuver around the steering wheel and the cage so you can fully exit the car. How long? Upwards of 10 seconds, depending on how flexible you are and how much practice you've had in getting out of that particular car. That's what the fire-resistant racing suit, gloves, and shoes are for. If a fire breaks out while you're strapped into your race car, your gear buys you precious extra seconds of protection so you can get out of your car before you end up with serious second or third degree burns. Look, we've all seen cars catch fire. I don't think you need me to tell you what would happen if your bare skin was exposed to those flames for even a few short seconds. The point is, if you drive your car on the street, you are much better off keeping your standard 3-point seatbelt, your nice comfortable reclining seats, and easy to use factory door handles that weren't made by me. No, technically it wouldn't be a race car, but it will still be fast, fun, and safe. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you at the track.